Well, hi there. Welcome to this episode of Streets and Eats. And this week we're talking to Eva Westerling, who originally from Germany is now living in Morocco. And boy, does she have a story to tell.
Welcome to Streets and Eats, the podcast where we want to inspire your next trip by telling you about some fantastic destinations and the best food to eat while you're there. Now remember, until the world opens completely back up and you feel safe to travel again, use this time to research and plan. That's what we're here for.
Eva, how did you get to Morocco?
Hi. Let me go back a few years for this one. I went on a holiday to Oman in 2016, at the end of 16, and it was a desert hiking trip. It was long days of nothing, really, just walking in the heat. And I had so much time to think. And I realized that I didn't like my life in Germany anymore. I was working as a hospital consultant, which was fantastic in a way because I got to travel all over the world. I had projects in Kurdistan, in India, in Chile, in lots of places. But I had a very disorganized boss, and there were periods in between where I had nothing to do, and I just kind of got annoyed with life in general. And I came back from this holiday in Oman and I felt like I need to change my life. Like I really need to do something different. I want to live abroad.
You had that aha moment. We've all had them, I think.
Yes. I mean, it's been there for a while before, like on and off. But like I came back and I had this strong feeling that something has to change, and fairly soon. So I researched a lot about options of what could I do living abroad, where would I want to go, what would I want to do, and couldn't really find something that I really loved so much. So I figured, okay, one step at a time, I'll just start saving money. So with this job, I actually made good money, but the years before I just spent it all because it was so nice to finally make some proper money. I just mostly on traveling, but also on clothes and stuff for the apartment. And I don't know. So for 2 years, basically, I didn't spend any money. Except for travels. I still traveled and I still went out for dinner because like you, I love food. So there's no way I'll stop eating, but no clothes, no electronics, no nothing. And I didn't set a time. I just thought, okay, I'll just save as much as I can. And then when the time is right, when there's a sign, somehow I'll know now is the time to go. I'll quit and I'll just go. And then I'll figure it out. And at the same time, I started my travel blog, Not Scared of the Jet Lag, just to give myself some time to learn how to do it, like the technicalities, like how do you edit photos, and you need to improve writing and stuff. Like I'm not a natural born writer, I'm a scientist. Like it, that's really work for me. And yeah, so for I think it was like 2 years, I just stuck it up in the job, and at least after 1 year, I got a new boss who had really good potential on paper, but also turned out not to really improve the situation. And then at the end of 2018, I went on a desert hiking holiday in Morocco with a woman from Australia. She had this crazy idea to hike along the edge of the Sahara all through Morocco, basically for a month or two. And she had talked about that or spoken about that on another podcast. And I had listened to that and I was like, oh my God, I so want to join her for that. And
you didn't know her prior to this?
No, I didn't have any idea. So that podcast has a Facebook group that always posts the current episode. So I just commented under that episode, like, oh my God, I would so love to go on that trip.
Wow.
And she actually answered and she said, oh, okay, let's talk. So, and that was like in March or April. And then in September, we said, okay, let's get real. Like, are we going to do this? And I said, I would love to come, but not for a month or two. I would just like to do maybe 2 weeks, embedded in a month-long holiday in Morocco, but I wouldn't want to hike so long. And so, yeah, that happened. We met up in Marrakesh. I traveled a week before, and then we started hiking. And it was a bit funny. She had found this guy who lives in Merzouga, who had told her he can organize this for her. And but nobody had ever walked the path from Zagora to Merzouga, which she chose for this trip before. I mean, maybe people had, but nobody knew anyone who had.
Right.
It's not like a common route.
I see.
And so he had told her it will be between 10 and 12 days. And I have some desert hiking experience. I've actually done another hiking trip in Morocco in 2015, a group trip hiking in the desert. And I kind of remembered how many kilometers we made and what was comfortable and what was way too much or would have been way too much. And I thought, yeah, it's 250 kilometers. No way on earth that we'll make that in 10 to 12 days. But okay, let's just go. I don't care. I mean, it's more about the experience than getting there, right? It's like
it's
I don't
the
care.
actual journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's like 25 kilometers a day.
A day, that's a lot.
Yeah, which is good. Which would be doable in like easy terrain.
Correct.
Easy terrain where it's relatively cool. There's lots of water sources.
So it was ambitious. But yeah, so we met the hiking crew just outside of Zagora and put all our things on the camels and started hiking. And after 3 or 4 days, it became totally clear that that's never going to happen in that time frame. And she got a bit angry. And I said, there's no point in getting upset. Like, it's just what it is. So if you only have 10 to 12 days and then you have to be somewhere, I'm sure there's the option to get picked up. Like, it doesn't matter. Why, let's just enjoy this. Let's make the most of it. And I think it took her a day to get over that. But so, we just kept walking. And she got picked up on day 11. And I just kept walking with the 2-man crew that we had. So my now boyfriend Hassan was the guide back then, and there was one other guy from the Zagora area who had the camels. And they said, we don't have a problem. We can just keep walking. You just have to agree on a price with the guy who organized everything. And so he picked the Australian lady up. So we just negotiated right there. And I said, okay, I'll keep going. It was probably the most expensive holiday of my life.
Oh, no. Wow.
But once in a lifetime, right?
But it also brought you to here, so.
Exactly. So that's the thing. And like I said, I don't mind paying for adventure and experiences and holidays and food and everything.
Exactly.
Like I save my money on transport and hotels. Like that's where I try to go cheap. But everything else, I'm happy to splurge. Yeah, so I finished the trip in Merzouga after 16 days of easy hiking. I mean, I think we averaged like 12 kilometers a day at the end or something. In the early days, there were a couple longer days, but it was really relaxing and really nice. And then, I went home to Germany. And like 3 or 4 days later, my boss invited me into his office and told me that he's restructuring the department and that probably the type of work that I love doing will not be a big part anymore. And I thought, there we go. That's my sign. Like, time to quit. Like, I'm not going to stay here if this gets worse. So after Christmas, I handed in my resignation. I had, I think, 7 weeks to get rid of as much as possible, put the rest in storage with my parents, and set off on what was supposed to be like, I don't want to say a trip around the world because that was never the goal, but just traveling, like long-term travel. I didn't have any agenda. Like I just thought I'll go to Morocco first. I've just been there. It's nice. There's more to see. I know some people now. And then I'll start traveling when it gets too hot. So made some plans to meet a friend of mine in Indonesia in the summer. And
where it's not hot at all.
Yeah, but it's a different hot. Actually,
different hot.
And actually Indonesia has the best climate for travel in July. Who would have thought? But yes, it's the dry season. So even though it's hot, it's not as humid, and it was really nice. So so I went to Merzouga I was here for like 2.5 months, I think. That first time around, and while I was here, got together with Hassan. And we started making plans to do another hiking trip in the fall. So I thought I'd just ask around in Facebook groups and stuff if we can get some girls together to go on a hiking trip. And maybe we can make a business out of this. And then, it was a bit tricky because, of course, half the people already have the whole year planned with their holidays. They would love to go, but not during that time, la, la, la.
Sure.
So, it was really kind of tricky. In the end, we had 3 girls who wanted to join. One had to drop out last minute because her work canceled her holiday. That was really annoying for all of us, I think, because she was so excited. But 2 girls, one of my best friends from Germany and one of her colleagues actually ended up coming. Mm-hmm. And we organized, I don't know, it was Saturday all the way through Sunday, the week, like, how much is that? 9 days or something in total, 9 or 10 days trip with 5 days hiking in the middle. And they loved it. Like, we got such good feedback from them. And we thought, okay, there is definitely potential for business in this because no one really offers this kind of thing here. And
it is something different, definitely different. So I think that's the key right there. What can you offer that's different than everybody else? Yeah, exactly.
And also just with the experience from my hiking trip with that Australian lady is, like, if you have Moroccan people organize it with nobody who has any business mind or experience with calculating how much things cost and everything,
or how long it's going to take.
Yeah, exactly. All these kind of things. It's like there's really a market for European thinking in planning those things, right?
Sure.
So I'm actually I'm actually selling as that. Like, I know how to do an Excel calculation. Like, I can organize things the German way and things will start on time. And even though that is sometimes a bit hard because you rely on Moroccans for transports and stuff like that, but
and all travel, you need to be flexible. I think that's the lesson to take.
Exactly. That's true. But also if you have to find like a group of people that you trust, that you work well with, and that you can then rely on to do what you want. Because
exactly.
I mean, half the people here don't care about stuff like that because they don't get paid well. Like, they don't care if they're late because they don't make much money with what they're doing. So I always think I'll just pay them 20% more and they will love to work for me and do what I want because they don't want to lose that job.
And does that work?
So far, yes. But with Corona, of course, we haven't been busy.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
But the few things we have organized, we actually did that. And yes, that worked. So that's how I ended up here, basically.
It's really important. It's really important anyway to build that relationship with the local community and make sure that they see you as a positive influence. And it sounds like you really have the key for that.
That's very true. And it's very hard here because I don't know if you have been to Mezuga, but it's very rural, it's small, it's in the middle of nowhere. And while most of the men that work in tourism speak at least French and some of them English, none of the women do. Like, if they speak some French, it's like a handful of words. And I actually studied Arabic for a while, but even that doesn't help here because the people in this village speak Tashlahate, the local Berber language. So, it's really hard, especially if you need to learn it from somebody who doesn't speak any language you speak. So I'm learning, but it's slow.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing from the beginning was to the little things, like dress appropriately. Like, I always wore long legs, either long pants or a long skirt or something. Always at least a t-shirt properly covering my shoulders. Most of the time, actually, something with long sleeves. Always like a scarf to cover any skin that could pop out. I don't cover my hair unless it's very sunny and too hot. Then yes, I put something on my head. But and so I've always been showing the kind of the respect for the community.
For the culture. Sure.
you know? And that's actually something that Hassan told me while I was away traveling that first summer. He said he heard from a couple of families how the women were saying how much they like the way I dress and how much they respect that, you know? So
wow,
that was really nice feedback to get. And so, yeah, I kept doing that, of course. And also I started making local friends. Like of course, the first people I was in contact with were Hassan's family, like his sisters, his sister-in-law, who took me to other places. So I got to know more people. And one of my best friends now is a lady who makes dresses. And I actually had her make me some dresses and skirts and pants because it's really cheap and they are tailor-made for me. And
that's nice.
You know, I actually put money into the country. Why would I buy something from home that I then have to lug down here? I just get stuff made here now. And so she is one of the few women who don't mind talking, even if we don't understand each other. And she has a really good way of reading body language and just getting the meaning of what I want. So she's teaching me so much now that I'm starting to be able to talk about the weather, the food, the children. I don't know. I could say that I'm moving into a new house and I need to buy a carpet, stuff like that, you know?
Well, but that's conversational. That's really important stuff. I figured I did pretty good when I was living in Germany. I went to the dealer and I negotiated buying a car and I had them say when I wanted it delivered and, you know, all this stuff. And I thought, oh, and also buying a kitchen one time when I was getting an apartment, you know, that kind of stuff. I thought if I can do that, maybe I'm doing okay.
That's right.
I'm not going to say I'm fluent, far from it, but I can get the big things done.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And I mean, I'm definitely not fluent, and I'm sure the grammar is completely wrong. Like,
exactly.
You know, I say I go Resani tomorrow, so to the next town, you know, and I think the go is not even the go, like it would be if you tell a child, go away, you know, like that kind of go. But that's what I know, and they understand it, so who cares?
And it's going to get better and better.
Yeah. And again, you're making that effort in the community, so you're becoming more and more of the community. Do you have any opportunity, and maybe this is something you've been doing, to include more women in the business? Or is it a possibility?
So for like the very small things, like for example, every time we've had clients, but also when my aunt and my uncle came over for Christmas in 2019, we always asked Hassan's sister-in-law to make a proper Friday couscous with grilled chicken or something, and we pay for that. Like, we don't just pay the food, we actually pay for her time. And if it's paying clients, we ask them to leave a tip. And on that girls' hiking trip, we didn't have enough time here, but otherwise we would have had offered them to get henna tattoos, for example, which would have been done by women. And so there's lots of things that we could do if people wanted, but half of that is actually only possible if the customers are exclusively women. Like if there's men, we cannot involve the local women unless it's eating in that family because we will be there, and you know, like that's okay. But if we offer like a cooking class or learning to do the traditional scarf stitching type of thing or something like that, it could be only women and children. So it's a bit tricky, but yes, we are definitely trying. I started teaching English once before Corona, but then we had to stop that for a year and a half. So now this week or next week, I will actually start again. 4 groups, 3 groups with children and 1 with women. For them to learn some English, because for the kids it's important. I mean, if they want to go and travel the world or work or whatever in an international environment, they will need some English, and the schools here don't provide good English. Like,
well, do they teach in French or do they teach in the local language?
So they teach the children in primary school or even before in the preschool, they learn Moroccan Arabic and French, And in primary school now they also learn Tashlahid, and I think in year 8 or 9 they start with some English, but they have a very strong French influence in the school system here. So it's very like there's a teacher in the front and she says a sentence and the whole class repeats.
Yeah.
They don't do anything individually. So in last year, 2 years ago, in that English class, I had the kids sitting in front of me and I said, my name is Eva. What is your name? And they all say, what is your name? I said, no. That's not what we're doing. And it took, I think, 3 lessons for them to answer something individually. Like they just wouldn't do it. They're so shy about this. But like a week or 2 later, they're so excited and they're all like, me, pick me. And they want to answer. And so I think it just takes some time and they will all start talking, but
yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So
going back to that first trip that you did with your friend and her colleague, did you organize the whole thing with Hassan? Yes. Or did you go back to the person that organized the first trip that you took with the Australian? How did that work?
No, we actually organized that because so Hassan, I mean, I knew what he charged us, right? That other guy. So, and Hassan knows what things cost. So we did a rough calculation and we thought we can take half that money and still make profit. Like he really made money with that. But how was I supposed to know? Also, I didn't do the initial price negotiation that Australian lady did. So we just organized everything ourselves. I mean, Hassan has connections everywhere and people from Mezuga are in all of the country. Like you find a guide in Essaouira on the coast that's from here or something, he knows people. And it's, of course, always easier if they're either related or good friends from school or something, because we know we can trust them. They will actually do what we ask and not drop people off and in some souvenir shops to get commission or something. This is the kind of thing I don't want our clients to experience. And I'm happy to pay more for that service because they rely on that money. So I'm happy to just include that in the price the customer pays, but I do not want them to be pushed into shopping cheap souvenirs or something.
Well, I think that sells it right there. So So how does this work? Do they contact you and then you set up sort of an individual experience for each person, or is there a set? Now, do you have it where there's a set itinerary and this is the night that you do this and during the day you do this, or is it you're just walking, you've got your camels? Give us an idea of what actually happens on the tours.
Okay, so we have all of the above.
Well, that's good.
So we have a few kind of standard trips on the website. Some just sort of round trip hiking from Mezuga for people who just want to organize the rest of their tour by the trip by themselves to make it cheaper. Or pick up in Marrakesh at the airport and everything organized until we drop them off there again, with hiking in the middle of my 16 days trip, in my opinion, prettiest part of the whole tour, or round trips in the Zagora area, which is 250 kilometers away from here, but also very, very nice area for hiking in the desert. And we can, of course, add anything people want. I mean, if they want to tour Morocco for 2 weeks before, we're happy to organize that also. And just in October, we had 2 Americans here who also run a podcast. I don't know, I'm always in touch with people from podcasts, who we organized. They only had a week, so it was very full on, sitting in the car a lot and stuff. But I mean, you are American, you know how they travel when they have full-time jobs. So they got a completely individualized trip. We've had a couple of conversations through Facebook Messenger, just writing back and forth about ideas they had, budget, and I just gave them options, what they could do with that time and the money, and we just ended up agreeing on something that made sense for what they wanted and fit in the budget. And then we, of course, had to be flexible again because they were flying via Paris, spent a day there, and then needed to get PCR tests with a QR code to get into Morocco. The code being the most important part of this experience, apparently. And for some reason, that was really difficult to get in France. And so they ended up missing the original flight to Marrakesh. But the guys at the airport were really, really nice because they were, everybody helped them get those QR codes, and in the end rebooked them for free on a flight to Casablanca, with the option to change planes and go to Marrakesh, but they would have had to wait for too long. And they just asked me if we can organize pickup in Casablanca and get them driven to Marrakesh, which of course we could. But all within 1 hour or something, like we had to act quick.
Scramble.
But I mean, in the end, you lose a bit of money, but that's all. So they said, yeah, no problem. We'll pay for that, but we prefer to arrive in Marrakesh at maybe 9 instead of after midnight. So, but yeah, so then they had a day trip to the coast, and then they came to Mezuga. They really wanted to go quad riding, which I really don't like. And I told them that because it destroys the environment. It's so noisy. It scares all the animals. And also it's annoying for everybody else around, because they're so loud. But they really wanted to do it. And so, yeah, I mean, we booked that for them too. And then,
sure, of course, yeah.
We hiked with the camels into the dunes just in the evening because it was still very hot. We still had over 30 degrees during the day, so Celsius, that is. So we left in the late afternoon, got to the place where we wanted to spend the night just before sunset, so we could hike up a small dune to watch the sunset, and spent the night in an oasis, which is really, really pretty place to stay the night. And it's far away from everyone else because 2 years ago, the government moved all the camps outside the dunes. Like they all had to leave the area and set up behind the dunes. So now you have to imagine the dunes, they go like in waves, and in every valley there's a camp. So you have camp, dune, camp, dune, camp, dune. So you walk up 5 meters on the dune and you see 3 other camps around you, and you also hear all the noise from there. There's so many people. I mean, it's starting to be noisy again now that tourism picks up, So
when you say camps, you're talking about camps of tourists.
Yeah, those are the classic Mezuga camps, that everybody books. Some more
where they go for 1 or 2 nights. And...
Yeah. Some more luxurious than others. Like some of them have air conditioning, which is ridiculous. Like, I mean, you're coming to the desert, please, But what can you do? And so those 2 guys, they were more like us. They don't care about the luxury. They want a good experience. So we took them to that oasis where, you're really in the middle of nowhere, you're alone, it's quiet, you can see the stars. So they loved it. We went for a bit of a hike in the morning before it started to get too hot, and then we were picked up by the driver. Drove to one of the villages close by for a bit of a local music experience. There's a very unique type of music here that's called Gnawa. And it's from people in Morocco that used to, they originate in, I think, Senegal or maybe even more south of that. And they used to be the slaves of the Berber people back in the day. And of course, now they're all free. But they decided to stay because they feel Moroccan now. I mean, they've been here for generations. But that music is an interesting mix of that more southern African or Central African music with Moroccan influences. And it's very kind of, meditative would be wrong, but it's very rhythmic and very, I guess, Yeah, I don't know if it's trance-inducing, but the kind of thing. And there's one village here where they're famous for this type of music. So you can go leave a little tip, and they will play music for you for half an hour or something. So we did that. Had some Berber pizza for lunch, which is also traditional food from here, like a bread filled with vegetables and some meat.
It's filled with it. It's not on top of it.
Yeah, no, it's filled with it. So, but they call it pizza anyways.
Yeah.
And then the day after that, we all drove together to Marrakech, where they had where we had a guided tour organized for the next morning, and then they had to leave again because weeks are short.
Yeah, that's too fast. Right. Well, I mean, you have what you have. At least they came.
And I think they're hooked. They definitely want to come back and do a proper hiking trip with us. So we'll see.
Well, we've only been to Morocco one time, and we did a 2-week driving trip because we drive all over the world. So, we did just on our own. No guides, no anything. Yeah. I speak enough French that I could get around. So.
Yeah. And I think it's a great way to discover Morocco. Like if you just want to hit the cities and maybe a bit of nature, it's totally doable on your own.
Very doable.
I mean, I have a lot of information about that stuff on my blog. So, it's the way I normally travel too. But if you want to be a bit more adventurous and actually go into the desert, don't go alone. It is actually dangerous.
Well, I can understand that.
So, on a multi-day trip, a hiking trip, you're actually putting all of your camping gear and everything on the camels and going from spot to spot?
Yeah, exactly. So, for that 5-day hiking trip we did with the girls in 2019, we get dropped at the starting point by 4x4 cars because it's in the middle of the sand. Yeah, like you need a good car to get there. And from there we walk for 5 days with camels that carry everything we bring, like enough water, all the tents, all the luggage, everything we need, food for 5 days. Again, I prefer to spend a little bit extra and get an additional camel to spread the weight a little bit, and also have sort of, you never know who sprains an ankle or something. So you need to make sure you can put a person on a camel and they will still be able to walk safely. So I always make sure that we have one extra, or the clients can book a riding camel and then we just spread everything out over the additional riding camels anyways. But so it's for the hiking, it's easy. The terrain is fairly easy to walk. I mean, there's some smaller sand dunes on the way, which makes it really pretty, but really hard to walk. For the most part, it's sort of flat, rocky ground where you can find fossils or really pretty colored stones. So, and then there's dry riverbeds where you have lots of bushes and acacia trees, and then you cross some mountains where you scramble up loose rocks and the camels really don't like it, so you have to go slow anyways.
I wouldn't like it either. I don't like loose gravel.
But I mean, it's not steep. It's it's very safe and easy to walk, and I would say it's not. You don't have to be overly fit for these trips.
Well, that's good to know. What about food? Like, what kind of foods do you pack while you're doing it? People are always interested in food, and I know that's important to me.
That's right.
So I was always really surprised how well the food was on all those trips. So we usually try to bring meat for the first day, because you can keep it kind of cold enough even when it's hot for half a day if you wrap it properly, and so we probably have chicken tagine or something like that for the first day if it's not a vegetarian group, and then breakfast is usually bread, and from day 3 I'd say baked in the sand the night before. So it's always like, that's always for me, that's the best part, like this fresh bread. It's just so amazing. And then for lunch, because it's the hottest time of day, there's usually some sort of salad. So we have lots of fresh vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, but they also mix fruit in it. So there could be apple or orange pieces or something, or pomegranates in the salad, and also in combination with rice or with some cooked stuff, also cooked vegetables.
So do you bring a cook with you, or are they meeting you at different places?
It depends. No. So it depends on how big the group is. So if it's a small group, Hassan will do the guiding and the cooking. If the group is bigger, we would bring an additional cook. Yeah.
I see.
And he has one cook he's worked with before who also makes couscous in the desert, which I find very impressive. But we usually do that on the last day. So, and then, we would have maybe canned fish with a salad to give some more protein. And then dinner is usually some sort of tagine, or we could make pasta with, tomato sauce or something also. Like, it totally depends on what the people want. Like, some people don't really like the Moroccan food too much, or if they've been traveling for 2 weeks, they're just sick of tagine. Like, it gets repetitive after a while.
Sure.
So we try to mix it up a bit, or for the night in the Oasis here, we had chicken barbecue with a salad and rice and a vegetable sauce, and oh my god, it was so good. And also, Moroccans really have a knack for food presentation. Like, it always looks fantastic.
Is that right?
Oh yes, and of course it always tastes good too. So yeah, so actually food, the only problem we would have is if somebody wanted to do gluten-free, I think, because that's really hard, because everything here is bread-based, or couscous, which is wheat also. So to a certain degree, I guess we could do that if people bring gluten-free pasta, and then we have rice and potatoes, and maybe we could make cornbread. But yeah, vegetarian and vegan, I think we could do fairly easily, but gluten-free might be tricky. So
it hasn't come up yet.
No, well, half. I have one friend who was visiting me in the very beginning, and she is kind of like, she has some sort of gluten sensitivity. Like, she has some problem with it, and she kept trying to eat all the good things, and she kept regretting that a day after.
That's too
few hours later.
So, nobody likes that.
No, exactly. So, and she really would love to come back and do a workshop in the desert. So that's another thing we do, or we want to do, but it's really on hold at the moment because nobody can organize stuff like that at the moment. But I created another website for, it's called Moroccan Desert Retreats, where, we plan to organize retreats, workshops, photography tours, whatever, for people who would love to host something in Morocco but don't have a clue how to start organizing this. And
well, let me know when you do, because I have a friend who's a watercolorist who does workshops all over the world. She would love to do that.
Okay, put her in touch with me. Give her my details. I'm happy to talk to her.
And I'll come along too for that one.
Yeah, exactly. And when the time is right, we'll just make that happen, because we are totally ready to go. It's just that I have a few friends who are yoga teachers, or that friend of mine who is a coach and would like to do breath work and I don't know what kind of workshop here. And they're all saying nobody will book at the moment. Like, to make this feasible for us and them financially, we would need at least 10 people, and nobody really wants to book half a year in advance at the moment,
Yeah,
and for those things you cannot really do them short notice, so I'm hoping for the next winter season, but yeah, let's see. Inshallah, as we say here.
Inshallah, yeah.
Well, what would that look like? Are you talking about like a camp in the desert where they would have the workshops, or is that
it's all possible. That's totally up to the people. So this particular friend, she would like to rent a whole, well, I wouldn't call them hotel. It's like an auberge, a bit further south from here, where we actually took her for like a 2-day just excursion, which is situated right next to a very nice dune field with way less tourists than we have in Mezuga. And they have like a big salon where, you know, if it's too cold outside or too sunny outside, you could fit 20 people easily sitting on the floor inside doing stuff. They have a really nice rooftop terrace with a view of the dunes, and with you could just walk into the middle of that dune field within 15 minutes with nice. You know, everything you need. And they could even provide a pavilion to put in the middle of that to provide some shade, you know. So she would love to rent that whole place and have the group there for 4 days with, you know, then there's a kitchen. It would be really easy. And people could have showers and stuff. You know, I mean, there's a bit of comfort.
Sure.
But also there, like one yoga teacher, she would prefer to actually go out into the desert, like take tents and everything and go for a hike and go very remote, you know, and find a nice place with a bit of, you know, with a nice tree to sit under or something, and stay there for 4 days. So it totally depends. We could also, of course, just find a very luxurious, fancy hotel here with a pool and a rooftop terrace, you know, and then do excursions. And in that situation, we could offer so many things in the village, you know, like henna tattoos and cooking classes and all these things, which would be more difficult if we were sitting in the middle of nowhere.
Absolutely. Well, that's good to know. So really everything's pretty much customizable, which in this day and age is the best, I think.
Yeah.
If someone is going to Morocco for the very first time, I think we'll end on this, you know. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to Morocco for the very first time, I mean, I know what I think, but after having lived there, what do you think is the most important thing for them to know? Maybe some tips about kind of going there and really getting the most out of their experience.
Okay, so I think the most important thing is really to stay calm. Like, don't get stressed when things don't go your way. Like, you really need to be flexible in Morocco, but you'll be rewarded for it. Like, whenever something kind of goes wrong, like somebody will come and help you and then invite you for dinner in their family, you know, and say yes to those opportunities.
That's
they really mean it, you know.
Agree.
They mean it. They will not try to trick you into anything. They really mean it. They want to get to know you. They want you to come into their house and share a meal. So just go for it. And then I think for Americans, it's important to know, bring cash or get cash once you're here, but like, cards are not accepted in most places outside the big cities. That is, like in the cities you can pay the hotel and with a credit card, but out here usually not. But there's ATMs everywhere, so it's not an issue to get money. And don't focus too much on Marrakesh. While it's an exciting and interesting city, there's so many other places around where you get a much more authentic experience, where it's not all catering for tourists. So, I guess that would be my top 3 advice for the newbie traveler.
Yeah.
Well, and you talked earlier about dressing appropriately and being respectful. That's always important no matter where you're traveling.
Yes, that's very true. In Morocco, people are very tolerant when it comes to that. So you can see people, like even Moroccans traveling here, and they wear shorts and tank tops, which I wouldn't advise to do, because people will not invite you to their house in that case.
That's right.
But also, it's not dangerous to do that. Like, you will not find any problems, you know, like it just makes the experience different. So yes, you're right. You should dress appropriately and show your respect for the culture, because you will get something in return.
That's right.
What about photography? I'm a big photographer. I especially love portrait photography when I'm traveling around the world. And each time you go to a new country, you know, there are different taboos or different things that come up about photographing people. What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because people don't like it. And especially the women will not get photographed by a tourist. Like, just they will avoid it as much as they can. I think men, you could get to agree, but you have to get involved first. Like, you have to talk to them, you have to chat for a bit, you know, like shopkeepers or something like that in the Medina, in the souk. if you talk to them for a while, if you buy something there, and I mean, things aren't expensive, but if they invite you for tea, whatever, you talk for 10 minutes. And then if you ask, would you mind if I take a photo? Most of them will say yes. And there are interesting characters and interesting faces around here. And with younger women, maybe, especially in the cities, you could also find some really pretty girls who wouldn't mind getting their photo taken. But like out here in Mezuga, the women, like I got to take photos of some weddings because I have a good camera, but they had like so staged, the lighting is always bad, like there's no equipment for actually taking good photos on an event like that. But they're fun and they like it, for those kind of things. But they also, I think they only agree because they know me and they know I will give them the photos and I will keep them, but I will not publish them anywhere. Like those photos will never see Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. So yeah, I think it totally depends. Like if you really wanted to do that, I think you need to take time. Like if you wanted to take photos of women just for you, I think if you stay in a village for like a week and you get in touch with somebody who can translate for you a little bit and you really get in there, they might agree to that. If you give them the photos and you say that you're just taking them because you like taking them, you don't want to publish them anywhere, then it might be possible, but I think it will be work.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've had a wonderful time talking to you. Makes me miss travel. Makes me miss going to Morocco specifically. We had such a great time when we were there. That's right.
Yeah, you should come sometime.
We might just. Well, thank you so much, Eva. And, maybe we'll have you on again sometime.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And it would be my pleasure. I'm sure we would find some other topic to talk about.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode. Thanks for joining us here at Streets and Eats, where we want to encourage you to savor the adventure. We'd love for you to come to our website, Roving Veils, or our sister site, Reflections en Route, and sign up for our newsletters. That way you'll never miss a podcast or a blog post. And join us on Facebook in our private Facebook group, Streets and Eats, where we talk all things travel, get advice from fellow travelers, answer questions, and just have a great conversation. Thanks for listening, and
ciao for now.